Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. This is Dr. Mike Ronsisvalle. Super glad you're sticking with us on the Live Well coaching platform. With you every day, Wednesday at 12:15. So glad that we're able to go over topics every Wednesday and kind of hit some things that I think are relevant for everybody. That's kind of my goal on Wednesdays, is just to make sure that we're talking about things that are relevant to your everyday life. Today we're going to be talking about anxiety. I labeled it breaking free from anxiety because I feel like that's what we all need to do, right? We are living in a world right now that anxiety is just inherent to the process. Anxiety rates are skyrocketing. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but we want to break through, right? We all want to find just freedom from the chronic stress and anxiety that we're experiencing. And it's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen because we just fall into it. We're going to have to break through. There's going to have to be things that we do that allow us to just get through the resistance, the walls that keep us bound up in the prison of anxiety. So that's the topic today. I'm going to start with a story. I know you're not surprised by that, right? That's kind of what I do every Wednesday. So this one is it's kind of funny. I think I was talking with my buddy and he was telling me about rucking. He had started rucking. Have you ever heard this word before? He's like, Mike, I'm rucking. I guess rucking is you put weight in a backpack and you just walk or jog or whatever with the backpack on, right? So you're increasing the resistance, you're increasing all the weight, and as you walk, whether it's a mile or a block or do 10 miles, it's like this weight is going to make the exercise more engaging. It's going to engage more of your muscles. It's going to be a harder workout. So he's telling me, yeah, you got to try this. It's amazing. And I'm not a big runner, right? But I've been known to work out a little bit, right? So I thought, okay, I'm gonna join this dude and I'm gonna see what this is like, right? So grab a backpack, and I don't even know if I did it right? So that's the thing. I can't really comment on rucking. I can comment on sort of my experience, right? So put some weight in it. I start walking, and honestly, like, no big deal, right? Like, thinking to myself, what's the problem? Why do people think that that's big of a deal out of it? This rucking thing is really not that big of a problem. Until I kind of got a little bit into the walk. And I'm telling you, the longer I walked with this weight, the harder it got. And I know you're not surprised by that. Like, hearing it, I'm sure if I were watching this video, I'd be like, duh, of course. But in the moment, it sort of surprised me, because I typically don't have that much of an issue walking around. So I was struck by how difficult it was. And honestly, by the end, I did not like it at all. It was messing up my back. It was my legs felt different. It was just a different dynamic, carrying more weight around. And I mean, I hated it, right? Like, I think I can just say that. Let's just get it out on the table. It's a bad idea. I don't recommend it. I think there's lots of other things I would do other than ruck if I'm going to exercise. So there, I said, I'm just getting that out there. For all you rucking enthusiasts, you're better than me, and more power to you. That's all I'm going to say about that. But something hit me about rucking and kind of how surprisingly difficult it was as I was going through it, and maybe even after, because it's like, man, what was that about? Like, why did I start to feel so put off by the whole process? And it kind of hit me in that moment that metaphor of a backpack full of weight, I've used that before a lot. I've used that to describe what it's like to have mental health issues, especially anxiety going on in our life. Because that's ultimately what anxiety feels like. I think we're basically getting up every day, and in addition to everything we're doing, right? We've got to go through our day. We've got to grind through and get through. We're doing it with extra weight. It's like more than the meeting that I had to present out, or it's more than all the work I had to do. It's more than the stress of the kids or my spouse or what. It's all that plus this extra thing that's just like feels like it's burying me. And that's ultimately what anxiety ends up feeling like. And I think for me, from my perspective, I know we're not meant to carry weight around like that. There's a lot of you that you're rucking your anxiety every day. Man, you're just putting your backpack full of stress and anxiety, and it adds to the drama. It's you take everything you're doing and you've added all the extra pressure. And so you think about metaphorically what that feels like, and it makes sense that by evening, if you've been rucking around anxiety all day and you've got all this extra just worry on your plate, man, you probably walk in your house, and I hear this all the time from my clients. My back is aching. My head is hurting. I'm short of breath. I'm exhausted. I don't know why I'm so exhausted, but I'm freaking exhausted all the time. I just can't keep up. I just can't keep going like this. And if that's you, I really would challenge you to look at anxiety and begin to try to examine anxiety in your life so that you can tease out, like, what are you going to do about this? Because honestly, going through life with, did I leave the stove on? Is my boss unhappy with me? Is my child safe? Is my life unraveling in a way that I don't really even understand right now? Like, though that anxiety, you can't sustain that. And that's why your body's talking back to you. A lot of chronic pain that people are dealing with is due to anxiety. It's because you're going through your day doing like all the stress of like a regular day, all the stuff, plus all the worry in your mind that just starts to build up over and over and over again. So this is not surprising. Any of you, I'm sure, like, we know anxiety is a problem. Some of the new studies are wild. Like, I cannot believe the research and some of the data on this. Some of the newest data, like maybe 33% of people over the course of their lifetime will be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. That's a nutso figure. That's huge. That's not saying 33% of people will struggle significantly with anxiety. That's not saying 33% of people, would say I was anxious in my life. That's saying 33% of people are going to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. Think of all the legions of people that will never get diagnosed that have diagnosable anxiety. I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, is it 50% of people? Is it 60% of people that really struggle with that backpack? You're carrying around all this weight all the time, and it's exhausting. If you're a female, the picture's harder. Let's see, 20% of people are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder every year. That means 20% of the population at any given time has that diagnosis. Crazy number. If you're a female, 23% are experiencing anxiety and have an anxiety disorder diagnosed at any given time. I mean, as a mental health professional, I just sink back in my chair. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this is like a tidal wave. It's an epidemic. It's a pandemic. I think it is worldwide. So why are we dealing with this? Lots of reasons. It's definitely worse now than it's ever been. I think that's due to technology. I think there's tons of reason why this is happening, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But all I can say for now is we have a problem on our hands. And the idea of walking through your life with all that backpack of anxiety just constantly there, all that pressure is unsustainable, and it's impacting your physical health. You're exhausted. It's impacting your relationships. You're angry. It's impacting your professional life. You're not as competent as you used to be. You're not getting as much done as you used to be. The impact in your life is real. So if you want to take that backpack off, if you want to just break through anxiety, what do? All right, I'm going to give you some quick information. And obviously, we could probably do the next, I don't know, what do you think? 10 weeks of Wellness Wednesday on this? We're not. But I'm going to at least give you some things that are head starts, and then give you some directions you can take at the end. That for those of you that really want to dig into this, I'll give you some resources and some things you can do to really go after it. But if you want to break through and get rid of the weight of anxiety, what do? Number one, you've got to rewire your nervous system. You've got to rewire your nervous system. So let me describe for you what is happening in your brain, in your body when you get anxious. Essentially, anxiety is driven by the fight or flight mode of the brain being activated. So the fight or flight mode is activated when you perceive that a situation is a risk, it's a threat, right? And that's a God-given response. Like you want that to happen when you're in danger. If you're walking down a dark alleyway in New York City at 2 a.m. and you hear footsteps behind you, you want the fight or flight response in your brain to go off. When that happens, your frontal lobe shuts down. This little part of your brain in the back of your brain back here, it's called the amygdala. It's the size of an almond. It will literally hijack your brain. It's called the sympathetic nervous system. That's actually the process that unfolds neurologically for you. So the sympathetic nervous system just takes over. It actually shuts your frontal lobe down. It actually activates your amygdala. The amygdala indirectly releases adrenaline and cortisol. All these stress hormones are running through your whole body, and you have more energy now to fight, right? You're going to turn around, and if there's a dude rushing you in New York City, and that's what the footsteps were, you have more energy to fight or to run. The blood rushes from your all your extremities to your major organs. There's some of you, your hands you're cold consistently. Your feet are cold. Do you know why? You're anxious. The blood is leaving like the parts of your body that don't need blood immediately, and it's trying to get blood to your heart. Right? You need energy. You need to be stronger than you normally are, run faster than you normally would. That's what happens when the fight or flight mode of your body is activated. So when that happens, you're kind of watching this cascading effect of adrenaline and cortisol and its impact upon your body. That's why your heart rate is going up. That's why your breathing is increased. Like you're trying to get more oxygen. Very, very appropriate in New York City when you're being attacked. Not very appropriate when you're sitting at a board meeting and someone asks you a tough question. Not very appropriate when your kid is yelling and screaming like a wild banshee at the restaurant and everybody's looking at you, right? Because you can't just like get up and run out of the restaurant. It'd be weird, right? That flight mode doesn't work for the way we live now. But it does work. It has worked historically for humans for millennia when they've been at risk in a real threat. So in order to beat back anxiety and just take that backpack off of all that pressure every day, you've got to learn how to shut fight or flight down in your body. You've got to turn the sympathetic nervous system off and turn the parasympathetic nervous system on. Parasympathetic nervous system is the part of your your nervous system that just calms everything down, releases all the feel-good chemicals, brings your frontal lobe back online. So we've talked a little bit about this before on Wellness Wednesday. Trevor talks a lot about it on the Monday mindsets, because if we're trying to teach mindfulness or something like that, you're going to get these activities. I wanted to tell you some things that are quick and dirty that will help you consistently, chronically learn how to turn fight or flight off in your brain and your body. Number one is deep breathing. I can't emphasize how important this is. And as I told you guys before, historically I've even struggled teaching people this because it seems too simple. It's like, oh, come on, man. That's such a psychologist thing to do. You're going to tell me to breathe deeply. Like that's going to do anything. Shockingly, I know this is wild, but it does. It actually does do something. It turns fight or flight mode off in your brain. I think we even talked about this 1 or 2 weeks ago at Wellness Wednesday. Just to put one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach. When you breathe correctly, the hand on your chest is going to stay still, and the hand on your stomach is going to move in and out. That's one way you know you're breathing out of your diaphragm. If you breathe and your chest is going up, that's probably going to increase anxiety, right? So you want to learn how to breathe to calm that down. I like this method of diaphragmic breathing, that's deep breathing, where you breathe in for like 5 to 7 seconds, you hold your breath, and then you exhale all the air out of your lungs. It's really not hard. It's very difficult to do in the moment. But as far as whether or not it's difficult to execute the process, really not hard at all. So if you want to decrease anxiety over time, you have to learn how to breathe in ways that bring the parasympathetic nervous system online and calm everything down. And you should be doing that probably every hour. If you're really struggling with anxiety, you need to set an alarm on your phone. You need to work for 55 minutes. And then every hour, take 3 or 4 minutes and just breathe. Get to a window, look at the blue sky, look at the wind in the trees, kind of get around, get nature in your head and in your eyesight, and take some deep breaths. You'll be surprised at how effective that is long term to calm the brain and the body down. Now, another thing you can do if you want to rewire your nervous system and kind of get that parasympathetic nervous system more online is cold exposure. And this one might sound counterintuitive because, for those of us who have ever been in a cold pool, or you've ever been skiing or in the snow and just gotten really cold, we know that cold exposure is one of the things that will create stress and anxiety in us. And you're absolutely right. But the research on intentional cold exposure and the power that it has to rewire your brain is pretty wild. So people are talking about this in regard to like cold showers. So you can literally just go in your shower, do all cold water take a 2-3 minute cold shower. Other people get more serious about this. They'll actually get pods or bathtub, whatever, pour some ice in there and fill it up with water. That's called an ice bath. Other people actually buy machines. I have one of these. It's a chiller where it chills up water, runs it through a tub, and it keeps your water cold at like 38 degrees. And exposing yourself to cold intentionally has this uncanny ability to rewire your brain, turn the sympathetic nervous system off, and turn the parasympathetic nervous system on. Okay, how does this happen? Like if we know that you are really stressed out and overwhelmed when you're exposed to cold, how does the cold exposure actually calm you down? Well, this crazy thing happens. As you start to let's say immerse yourself in a 38 degree cold plunge the way I did this morning, your body will instantly release all the adrenaline and cortisol. You'll start to feel like you can't breathe. you'll start to feel like your heart's going to beat out of your chest, right? But over time, the more you do this, it might not happen the first time, you're going to be shocked that you can learn how to just literally calm your heart rate down. And some of that is chemical. Your brain is responding to, oh, you're in danger. Like you could die. That's what your brain thinks. This cold, 38 degrees. Something needs to change because Mike's gonna not be able to withstand this. So your body instantly starts to respond, and you will see as you practice breathing, your brain and your body just calm down, and then dopamine is released. Dopamine, some of the studies say, is released for 4 to 5 hours after a cold plunge. Think about that for a minute. What drug can you go take that you're going to have a dopamine release for 4 to 5 hours afterwards? You're going to be hard pressed to find that drug, by the way. If you want to have dopamine doing drugs, you better snort some cocaine every hour or two, right? Just to keep it going. Isn't it wild that a cold plunge or cold exposure intentionally will release dopamine for 2-3 times the amount of time that a hard drug will? Now, obviously, it's not as intense. It's not like, you're high coming out of a cold plunge. But I'm telling you, and I speak from experience here, if you do this consistently, you will find that it changes the dynamic of your day. And it really does put the quietus on anxiety. You will be less anxious during the day for having done a cold plunge in the morning. I start most mornings with a cold plunge. Believe that or not. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I'm in 38-degree water, and it's incredible. All right, so we're trying to rewire our brain. We're trying to turn fight or flight mode off. We're going to start deep breathing. You're going to do a cold plunge. You're going to get some ice and put it in the tub. You're going to take some cold showers every morning. Start every morning with a cold shower. Third thing, I am super excited about the idea of exercise and eliminating the fight or flight response in the brain. It absolutely works. One of the most powerful ways to rewire your brain and your nervous system is building resilience against anxiety and stress using exercise, because exercise literally plays an incredibly crucial role in breaking chronic stress patterns, and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So some people want to understand, well, why does exercise really help? Well, because it's activating the very part of your nervous system that is incompatible with fight or flight. So when you exercise, you're quite literally hitting the reset button on your brain, and you're taking yourself out of sympathetic, out of fight or flight mode, and you're activating parasympathetic. Is that wild? So we all know we need to exercise. How many of you would say, I know I should? Look, you can't overemphasize how important this can be if you want to break through anxiety. So number one, rewire your nervous system. I could tell you a lot more about that. I will give you some resources at the end of this video that will kind of point you to ways to rewire your brain, and some resources we actually have on the platform that you can use. But that's step one. Step two, you've got to release or reduce stimulation and protect your mental space. If you're going to break through anxiety, you've got to reduce stimulation and protect your mental space. So a lot of people will ask me, Mike, why is anxiety so bad? Why are we in a position where we have 20% of people at any given time that are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder in our country? Like what is happening? Is it something we're eating? Is it in the air? Is it in the water? Something's got to be going on. And you're right, something is going on. And what I think is a massive part of this is the pace of the world we live in and the stimulation created by the world we live in. So we'll start with the pace. When people were, let's say, living in Jesus' time, right? So you read the Bible, and you look at those stories and biblical times. The pace and cadence of their life was different. If you had a meeting with someone, right? What did you do? Did you like go from Zoom call to Zoom call and like click it up and you're on the screen? No, it wasn't like that at all. It's like, okay, I've got to meet John downtown, so I'm going to walk. I'm going to be out in nature. I'm going to be, the wind's in my hair, the warm sun is on my face. That's what happened for them, right? So it'd take you 30 minutes to walk to your meeting. You're talking to your buddy and you guys are, who knows what it was like. Sometimes I wonder, but kind of long for it, really. It kind of be cool. Then you meet, and then what happens? Then you walk back. So the pace and cadence of life was you work really hard, and then you'd have situations that created some calm, right? And you'd work really hard, and then you'd have situations that demanded that you couldn't work 24/7. There are many of you that you start in the morning when you wake up, and it's like the Energizer Bunny. You never stop. Like you're going 1,000 miles an hour until what? You collapse in your bed at night. Now, so we've got the pace of our world, but then we also have some very unique challenges recently with technology. And technology now is sometimes the vehicle that allows you to go 24/7. Because think about it. Very few of you are working 78 hours a week. Like, do the math on that. It's almost impossible to actually work that much as far as time spent working. So most of us are, we're working 40 hours or 45 hours or even 50, whatever. You're working, and then what are you doing? Are you going home and like meditating on your back porch and reading? No. You're looking at technology 24/7. There's never been another point in human history where technology has just bombarded us the way technology does in our world. So we have these little things. I show it to you guys all the time on Wellness Wednesday. Now, let me see. I have some text. I can't help but look. How many do I have? Like 3 or 4 right now, just since we started. And so we're getting our thumbs moving in the evenings, right? We're texting. We're posting on social media. We're responding, or we're just doom scrolling, right? And when you doom scroll, that technology just grabs you, and your brain is like highly stimulated. It is not a parasympathetic activity that just calms you down the way walking to a meeting would in Jesus' time. It's not. It's the opposite. It's and you have as much stimulation as you're willing to engage. Like you can sit there and scroll and more information and more and more. And that kind of stimulation literally is enacting the sympathetic nervous system. Why? I mean, there's some biology to it, actually. When you think about our brain and how it's wired, before 40 years ago, I mean, any time you had like constant stimulation, that was going to be a sign of risk, right? Think about it. If you're sitting in 1780 and you're a settler in the New World here in America, and you're sitting on your farm, if there's constant risk, something's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it an Indian that's after me? Am I being attacked? Why am I going to get bit by something like that? That was a problem. People didn't manage that kind of stimulation. It was work really hard, relax. I'm not saying these people didn't work. Obviously, hunters and gatherers, yeah, they're working pretty hard. Farming in 1800 in America, pretty hard life, right? You've got a lot to do, but the pace and cadence was not facilitated by the technology that makes us just feel like there's constantly something coming at us. Do you see how the way we live is a part of why we're all so stressed out and anxious? You've got to protect your mental space. You've got to reduce the amount of stimulation that you're experiencing. So how do you do this? You can take a dopamine fast. I mean, that's a legitimate opportunity everybody under the sound of my voice has. Decide I'm going to have moments in my life where I'm not exposed to dopamine, and set a time frame for it. And maybe it's I'm going to not have any technology, nothing, no stimulation for 12 hours, 24 hours, a weekend. I know a guy that he does these mindfulness retreats. He's gone for like 3 days. I don't know if I could do it. 3 days, no stimulation. Man, I would crave it. I'm just thinking right now what it would be like. No one's calling me on my phone. I'm not answering texts. I'm not watching anything. There's no videos. What would that feel like? What would feel actually for your body and your brain? It would feel really, really good. So figure out how to fast, how to have moments where you're just not going to let the technology create all the dopamine. That's number one. Number two, you can do the 90-minute work, 15-minute reset method. That works very, very well. So what that means is work for 90 minutes, reset for 15 minutes. And that's the cadence of your day. The research is strong on this because most people get a lot more done if you work like that. That's counterintuitive. It doesn't feel like that's real, right? But man, they've studied it for decades now. And most people, if you work for 90 minutes and like you go all in, do deep work is what they call. Like phones away, computer shut down. Like I'm dialed in. And then 15 minutes goes by and you take 15 minutes and you literally walk outside. You take a break. I've got a buddy that works here at LiveWell, and he was telling me his time's he doesn't do 90-15. I think he does like 55-5, something like that, 55-10. So he'll work for deep work for 15 minutes, and then he literally goes outside. He rides a skateboard. It's a grown man riding a skateboard every hour, and he's like, man, it just resets me. It resets my neurology, and he gets way more work done now than he did before he started something like this. So I really would challenge you you've got to find yourself in situations where you're intentionally reducing the amount of stimulation that you experience. All right, then number 3, I say you change the frame, you change the game. What I mean by that is you change the frame of reference, you change your experience of life. You have to focus in on the battleground of your mind. As we've seen and talked about so many times, the battleground is your mind when it comes to depression and anxiety. The thought life takes hold, and that anxiety thought begins to take over, and it will hijack your brain. And the reason that's happening is because your frontal lobe is shut down, so you don't really have the capacity to think through exactly what the solution to the problem is you're experiencing. That requires frontal lobe activity. That's a parasympathetic nervous system activity. When you're in fight or flight, man, it's just like you're running, you're going crazy. And that's why you can have the thoughts that I talked about at the beginning of this Wellness Wednesday. Is my kid going to be okay? Is there something going on in my life that I don't even know about right now? Like what's happening? The reason you can just like literally loop over and over and over again is because your frontal lobe is just not turned on. But as you begin to reduce stimulation and as you begin to rewire your brain, you're going to find that your frontal lobe is on more often. Now, that's not going to get rid of the backpack of anxiety immediately because you have to do step 2, which is ultimately, really leaning into these negative thoughts, these negative narratives that anxiety attaches to. there's two kinds of thoughts that are consistently attached to anxiety. They're correlated with anxiety over and over again in the research. Like, you want to change your frame of reference, you want to change the way you're thinking in regard to anxiety, it's probably going to boil down to a couple different domains. One is the anxiety of the unknown. So much of your mindset and anxiety is centered on the unknown. And so our minds crave consistency. They crave certainty. Our minds want to know what's coming next, right? And anxiety in many ways is geared towards mitigating the risk of uncertainty. So I hate when I don't know what to expect. I mean, that for me, that's a super tough one, right? And so I seek to do what? Stack the deck, right? Don't you? Like, you want to stack the deck. Let me size up the situation. Let me figure out what this situation requires. Let me create a relevant response. Like that. That whole process is designed to mitigate uncertainty. So I'm not caught off guard. So I know what's coming. Part of making peace with anxiety, part of making sure that you're not just rucking anxiety all day, every day, is allowing yourself to say, okay, I'm going to come to a place of peace with the idea that my life is consumed by unknowns. There's a lot that is uncertain. And then the other domain is you can't over attach to outcomes. Anxiety will take over your life in an attempt to control outcomes. Like, you want to know how to control people. You want to know how to control situations. You want to know how to control yourself. And when we feel like the outcomes are uncertain, that's when anxiety is just going to skyrocket, right? So part of the mindset that you need to grab hold of is the idea that, man, I can't control outcomes and I can't make an uncertain world certain, but I can do the next healthy thing. And this has been proven over and over and over again for decades and decades and decades. People that focus on the process tend to be happy, healthy, and successful. Crazy. They actually perform better. People that tend to focus on the outcomes, pursue certainty at all costs, like everything is just right and it's perfect, those people end up anxious. And so that's something that you've just got to make peace with. Like, I mean, I know we don't want to admit that. We don't want to accept those things, but what good does wishing those things weren't true? What good does that actually do? You can spend a lot of time wishing you could control outcomes. I wish that I just knew what he was going to say. You could spend a lot of times wishing you could control what's uncertain. I just really wish I knew what I got on the test. I wish it doesn't matter. So part of the solution to anxiety is allowing yourself to just accept, okay, there are moments in this life that I cannot control what comes next, but I can control the next healthy thing. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the next healthy thing. And I'm going to completely release outcomes. When you can get there, that mindset is going to help you tremendously. All right. So as I said at the beginning, I could talk to you guys about this for eons. We just don't have the time on a Wellness Wednesday. But I am going to point you towards some resources, okay? If you want to rewire your brain, I'm going to give you some options. If you're on the Live Well coaching platform, we have mindful moments. That's right there. You should, if you have the subscription, you have access to that. And they're just moments that we've put some videos together, some audio, where they just teach you how to calm your brain and your body down. They teach you how to rewire your brain. So I really encourage you, if you're not on the Live Well coaching platform, make sure you get that subscription. Right now, I think it's free for 2 months to do it. What do you have to lose? And that way you can use the mindful moments. Use them every hour. Take 5 minutes. Do like my buddy here at the office. Do 55 minutes of work and 5 minutes of mindfulness. So number one. Number two, if you want more information about the how to rewire your thoughts, like your mindset, and kind of get your mindset in a different frame, then the Stress Relief for Life course on Live Well coaching platform is awesome. I did it. So how self-serving is that? But seriously, it's pretty good, guys, because it just walks you through, I think it's 15 or 18 sessions. They're all about 5 or 10 minutes each. You can do one a day. And what I put in that Stress Relief for Life course is literally almost session by session what I would do with someone that is struggling with chronic stress and anxiety in therapy. Is that cool or what? So you can look at every session and say, okay, that would probably be my first session with Mike, and that would probably be my second session with Mike, and that would probably be my third session with Mike. And man, I get into everything. We talk about how to calm your brain and your body down. We talk about how to rewire your brain. We really dig into the idea of thoughts and feelings and behavior and the mindset. You got to change the frame to change the game, right? I tell you exactly how to do that in that course. So if you have the Live Well coaching subscription, you've got it for free. Do it. I mean, why not use it? If you don't have the subscription, and I can't talk you into just doing the 2 months free and getting access to everything, you can get that course on our website. I think it's like $5 or something, $10. It's not crazy expensive. And I think you'll find the bang for the buck is awesome. So those are the things that I wanted to point you to just say, okay, there are resources that are there that we have that are really going to give you some nitty gritty information, data, and content to lean into over time that will help you just take the backpack of anxiety off and begin to live in a peace that you've not known. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this one was a little longer, but I wanted to get at least most of that information out to you. Thanks for being on the Live Well coaching platform. Thanks for commenting and engaging in the community. And we just consider our privilege to be able to speak to you every week in these live events. So, all right. Thanks so much.